Today with Tyler LaPierre, first night of Electric City Speedway racing in 2024, and we're finally back to the racetrack. We were just talking about it before we came on and saying, wow, yeah, we're already here.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, feels like it just got over with.
Yeah. So, you're a former driver of, Midwest Modified, drove here last year, and 2021 as well. I'm sure, so, kind of piggybacking off of that, how did you get your start in racing?
I kind of grew up around Electric City Speedway, born and raised in Great Falls. I had a lot of family that raced. I'm cousins with Mark Wormling, Corey Wormling, Rich Wormling. I spent a lot of time in their pits as a kid. I'll kind of backtrack a little bit. Back in the 90s, my grandpa Larry, he built street stocks. My grandma Dolly, his wife, she raced a pure stock. So the car that my grandpa Larry had built, it was the number 76X car. Darren Falkenhagen was the wheelman for that car.
Okay.
About when my dad turned 12, he got his first street stock. He actually lied to the track owner saying that he was 14 because you had to be 14 in order to get behind the wheel of a race car here at the track. Yeah. And so he was 14 for 3 years. And
it's funny how that works.
Yeah. And he spent a lot of time in Mark Wormling's pit as well. And,
okay.
Mark was number 9. Yeah. So when my dad got his first street stock, he was number 9X.
Okay. Cool.
And so my dad raced in street stocks for a couple of years. Finally, one night, by the grace of God, beat the 76 machine that my grandpa Larry had built for Darren. And at that point, my grandpa Larry and my dad had kind of teamed up and were working. They started working together, and they became 76X. And so, obviously, I spent a lot of time here as a kid. I had really, really poor grades growing up, and in 2017, I finally pulled my head out and started doing a little bit better in school. And my mom and dad helped me get my first street stock. And so I became 76X, trying to carry that on. And the rest is history. We got a couple years in a street stock under my belt, a couple years in a Midwest mod. Really, as far as laps go, I haven't had that many laps. I raced a little bit in 2017. I think I had like 4 or 5 nights maybe on that season. Then I went to basic training in June. So I was gone for the rest of that season. 2018, I ran my first full season in a street stock. 2019, my dad was deployed, so at 20 years old, there wasn't really a whole lot that I could do on my own. I didn't have the truck, the trailer, any of that sort of stuff. And so 2020, I got my first year back. I started in the Midwest Modified, and I ran 2020, 2021, both full seasons. Was deployed for 22, and then came back last year for the 2023 season in my 2021 MB Custom.
Nice. So you mentioned being deployed to Djibouti. You want to tell us more about that?
We were over in the Horn of Africa. We were only there for about 4 months, but we were doing a lot of humanitarian stuff. It was right in the middle of the summer, and so I was able to, thankfully, where we were at, I had internet access. I was able to get on the live stream, watch some racing here. I was really missing it.
Yeah.
Over there is 120 degrees, 100% humidity. I think the coldest it got there was like 2 in the morning, and I think it was like 92 degrees.
So, what did the National Guard teach you? Your time in the military?
Being in the military, you really have to have a lot of attention to detail. I'm a crew chief on C-130s. So basically, I have my own aircraft that I manage. I do all the pre-flight inspections on. When something breaks, I I manage the specialist shops for that aspect of things, and so if it's something that I can't fix myself, I would get with one of the specialist shops. Prior to being a crew chief, I was actually in the jet engine shop, and so the jet engine shop really has you really have to have that keen eye, a really good attention to detail, and I try to carry that forward, especially into the racing world, because you're always essentially managing your aircraft, if
Right.
you will. If one little thing goes wrong, you could potentially be out of a win, you could potentially be out of a championship, you could potentially wreck your stuff really bad.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of taken that, used that forward in my racing career as well.
Yeah. It's a similar maintenance types to
Yeah.
making sure you don't fall out of the sky and making sure you get to the checkered flag.
Exactly. And really, I mean, your safety's put at risk in both aspects, you know what I mean? And so I kind of try to put that into perspective for people that don't really understand either racing or maybe understand racing but don't understand like the aircraft side of things.
Yeah.
So
That's cool. I used to fuel C-130s when I was down in Helena, so that's
really?
cool.
Okay, awesome.
So we talked about the National Guard a little bit, but I mean, what does the day-to-day look like? What's your full-time gig?
So that is my full-time gig.
Okay.
The cool part about the Air National Guard with my position is I'm what they call an AGR. It's Active Guard or Reserve. So I'm on active duty orders. I get all the same benefits that active duty community gets. I don't have to put up with all the active duty BS, if
Right.
you will.
Yeah.
The PCS in every 3 years. I don't have to move all the time. I'm kind of at my liberty to do what I like. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And same thing with being able to move freely. I started in the jet engine shop. Went over. I actually started as a crew chief. Went to the jet engine shop for 5 years, and went back into the flight line full time as a crew chief. So being able to bounce around, learn as much as you want, really.
Yeah.
That's one of the coolest parts about the Montana Air National Guard.
That's awesome. So this season you're transitioning from driver to kind of taking over more of an announcer's role. I'm the announcer here, and so I mean, what is one thing you're kind of looking forward to learning the most about on this side of the fence?
I think one of the things I'm most looking forward to is kind of broadening my horizons and kind of opening my eyes to everything that really needs to happen in order to put on a good show at a racetrack. For me, as a driver, all your work is done in the shop. It should be done in the shop prior to coming to the track. When you put it in the box and you wheel into the track, you kind of have one goal in mind, and and there's a lot that takes place to make a feature win happen, but it's all done kind of prior to getting to the track.
Right.
And so you don't really ever think about the many hands that are at work into getting a good show in at the racetrack that are around here. You know what I mean? So I'm really looking forward to kind of opening my eyes to that aspect for sure.
Are there like any nerves that you're feeling coming in? I mean, you said you have a little bit of public speaking experience, but I mean, is that?
Yeah, I feel like I'm fairly well spoken. I think that I have the personality to do well, kind of excel in something like this. But obviously, it's something new to me, and so there's definitely going to be some nerves. But I think I'm a little nervous. I'm going to let a couple things slip. You know what I mean?
Hopefully, no F-bombs come out.
Exactly. That's what I'm.
Right.
I'm a little worried about that one.
Yeah.
I feel like as the announcer, you kind of have to, call it as you see it. You don't have time to process what you're going to say, think it over, mull it over, and then it's got to just come out. And I think that my racing background will help with something like that. But like I said, I've never had to, in the pits, in the car, it doesn't matter what you say.
Yeah.
But
let it fly. Yeah.
Up here, it's a little bit different story.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Gotcha. Kind of shift gears a little bit. Who would you say your racing hero is?
Oh man, it's going to be a pretty generic answer. I feel like everybody has, that one person that either introduced them to the sport or that they've always really looked up to in the sport. I have always looked up to my dad, and especially in this aspect of life. He's been my hero all around, but at the racetrack, he is a different animal. You know what I mean? He's the type of guy who wants to win in a foot race, and so you get him. Yeah, so you get him in something, especially that has the the legacy of the 76X, or that has the last name on it. At that point, it's deeper than him and a car, him and a piece of steel. You know what I mean? You've got family members up in the stands. You got sponsors up in the stands. People that really kind of count on you to make them look good. For me, there's really no worse feeling than coming out and embarrassing myself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so he really takes that to heart. But in the same breath, racing isn't his world. You know what I mean? He raced throughout the 90s, won a lot of features, won a lot of championships. Was kind of a badass back in the 90s. I was born in 99. He took 13 years off. He took that time to focus on what really mattered in life. Making sure that I had a good home, that my belly was full, that really did what a dad should do. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? He prioritized his life, and came back 13 years later, won 9 out of 16 features that year. Wow. Got rid of that car, said, okay, we need to, I gotta have other things I need to focus on right now. Took a couple more years off, came back in 2016 with the Midwest Mod again. Won 13 out of 16 features. Went to the Wissota 100, took 4th in the Race of Champions in Huron, South Dakota, with a lot of really big name guys, a lot of heavy hitters. So I really look up to him. I would definitely say that he's my racing hero.
That's great. It's very, very dominant. It sounds like kind of took to it like a fish to water a little bit.
Yeah, I had some big shoes to fill. Especially, I definitely felt like I had some big shoes to fill. In fact, I don't think my dad really wanted me to take the 76X number right away, mm-hmm. Because that's something that he has always been really proud of. My grandpa Larry has always been really proud of, and my very first year in a race car, who knows what's going to happen? You know what I mean? You don't want to tarnish something that a lot of people look up to. So I kind of put a lot of pressure on myself in that aspect. But I think that helped motivate me to, do the best that I could. I think that there's a lot of people out here who they show up to the racetrack and it's a party. You know what I mean? They want to show up and they want to hang out and drink beer with their buddies after the race, and that's fine. You know what I mean? But for me, it's a different mindset. It like I said, man, there's no better feeling than taking your victory lap and standing in the victory lane. And I think that there's some people that just don't maybe have that drive.
Right.
But
so it's kind of, for you, it sounds like it's more like kind of furthering a legacy mm-hmm. type thing rather than just coming out here to do it.
Yeah, and I think at a certain point, second place isn't good enough. You know what I mean? I've always wanted to be the guy that when I wheel into the pits, people go, oh shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's in Great Falls, Montana, it's really tough to get to that level.
Yeah.
You need a lot of help. You need the right people in your corner. But when the guys back east, Minnesota, Wisconsin, any of the Dakotas, when they come back over here, 9 times out of 10, you go, oh man, I guess I'll take second. You know what I mean? I've always wanted to get to that level.
Right.
But yeah, I think, like I said, it takes a lot of determination, a lot of grit, a lot of tenacity, and that's something that I've always strived for.
So how would you describe your driving style?
I think think right now, I would say aggressive. I would say really aggressive. Um, the like when I first started, I would almost say like kamikaze style.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At a certain point in these cars, with certain track conditions, you kind of got to put your safety to the side, and you
Right.
kind of got to drive it like you hate it. And a lot of times these cars respond better when you're really aggressive, when you're not afraid. And if you are timid behind the wheel, 9 times out of 10 you're going backwards.
Yeah.
Obviously, if it's super dry slick, if it's one lane around the tires and you're going in there wide open, blowing the tires off in the middle of the corner, that's one thing. But I think level-headed, I would say, I'm pretty level-headed anymore. Obviously, like seat time helps with that, but at the same time, like the last race of the year last year, it was pretty dry, top to bottom. There was a lane on the tires and there was a lane on the fence, and at a certain point, you kind of gotta just whatever happens and drive it in on the fence, and if you're not aggressive there, you could push and you get tight and smash the fence getting tight, or if you're too aggressive, you can go in wide open and loop it in the corner and wad your stuff up that way.
Right.
And so really, I think being calm. I would say I'm calm behind the wheel. I'm calm behind the wheel. I think if you would ask me that same question 2018, I would have said, dude, I'd just go in there and I keep my foot on the floor, and whatever happens at that point happens. But there was a lot more tore up shit back in the day.
Right. Yeah. You had flat foot fevers.
Yeah.
Something like
Yeah,
that.
and the track was different too. You know what I mean? Honestly, like 2021, it was my second year in a Midwest mod. My first year doing everything by myself. My dad kind of went hands off, and I think that really helped kind of get me where I'm at too. But really, like there wasn't a whole lot of people that could run, knew how to get around Electric City Speedway.
Right.
There was a certain line. There was a certain driving style. There was a certain way to get around Electric City Speedway, and fast. And there was a lot of people that I don't think really saw that. I think that that certain aggressiveness really helped get me there.
Gotcha. Yeah. I came here in summer of 2018, and my first race in Montana was at this track, and so first race I saw in Montana, and it was just kind of one lane down around the bottom, kind of like I don't necessarily want to come up here anymore, and then it changed hands. And 2020 was a totally different.
It was.
Even so quick, it was a totally different racetrack. There were cars all around the track. They're up, bottom, low. It was, and it's been pretty much the same ever since. Great racing at this place.
Yeah, and they've done a lot of work to the track. Back in the day, I thought it's an awesome racing surface. It's really technical, but there's you could definitely tell the people that knew how to get around Electric City Speedway and the people that didn't. And now that they reshaped the track, they are using whatever water additive or whatever they're doing now. It's a lot more multi-lane. There's a lot of it's still really technical, but I think in my mind, the technicalities are going to make a better driver. I think back in 2016 when my dad was driving, the track was a lot heavier. It wasn't near as dry, which I personally enjoy. I buy a race car and I build a race car because I want to go as fast as humanly possible. You know what I mean? But at a certain point there, it wasn't so much about who had the better car, who was better behind the wheel. It was a lot of it came down to horsepower. You saw a lot of big horsepower motors winning. Back where we were running with soda modifieds, you had guys with big, nasty 406 small blocks. You had guys with a lot of horsepower that would go out and lap the field. You know what I mean? And since we have transitioned now into a more technical racetrack, it's really come down to who has better setup on the car, who has some finesse behind the wheel, and really who can pick their line, who can I don't know, who can drive the best at that point, which I personally enjoy.
Yeah, I think from a fan's perspective, which is pretty much the only perspective I have to offer, I think that kind of helps put on a better show for the fans too. Because I mean, it's not just smash the gas and be up on the wall. It's you gotta watch some. I've watched people win from the bottom and win from the top over the past few years here.
Yeah, and the dry slick stuff, like I said, it definitely makes for a better show. I've spent a couple nights up here in the stands. 2022, or I guess would have been 2022. I caught the last race last year, or 2022. Last year, there's a couple nights I spent up in the stands, and it's a way better show. Getting to watch people 3, 4, 5 wide going into the corner. Whereas maybe you're not going as fast, but the racing is a lot better, and I think consequently the cars have gotten way better.
Yeah,
it wasn't so much focused on setup and spring rates, bar angles, caster camber, who had it all dialed in, whereas now I think that every little minute detail about a race car and a driver paired together really comes into play in order to get a front run a race car.
So on your My Race Pass page, you have a nickname, Strictly Business. Where's that nickname coming from?
So people started calling me Strictly Business because when I got to the racetrack, I put on a different face. I was essentially there to do a job. I wasn't ever really here to make friends. I wasn't here to make enemies by any means, but I brought my friends with me to the track, and I think a lot of people saw that and started thinking of me a little bit differently. Started calling me an asshole. Started calling me other choice words.
Yeah.
Because I put on a different face and I put on a different bravado, and my attitude changes. There's a lot of guys that I would see, walking down the street, walking through the grocery store, whatever, and I would stop and talk with them and have a conversation with them, shake their hand, and say, hey, it was good seeing you. And at the racetrack, there was that aspect kind of went away.
Gotcha.
I kind of put on my game face, if you will.
Yeah.
And really, when I wheel into the racetrack, like I said, I brought my friends with me. If you were out there on the same track, on the track at the same time I was, I would never get into you. I would never get into you on purpose. I would never wreck anybody. I would never door anybody to advance a spot. You know what I mean? But I wasn't there to make friends. You know what I mean? I wasn't one of those guys that showed up to laugh and joke and drink beer with all my buddies. I was there to win.
Right.
So there was a lot of people that just started calling me Strictly Business.
Nice.
So.
Cool. So I mean, what kind of made you settle on modified? You said you started out in street stocks. I mean, what has made you settle on that?
I really like how the cars have advanced over the course of the past couple years. I've only ever raced a 4-link car one time. I was pretty torn last year, taking my year off for my deployment. I came home and I thought, what do I do? Do I build a 3-link car? Do I build a Midwest mod? Do I build a modified? And really, a lot of what it came down to was I had a lot of things that I wanted to try with the 3-link stuff. Get a little bit more seat time before I find myself in a 4-link car. And I think that in my mind was going to make me a better driver. And I feel like by the time you move up, you should be able to outperform the abilities of your car. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You should be able to outdrive the limits of your race car. The like I said, the technology has gone crazy over the course of the past couple of years. My dad has a really old school mentality when it comes to race cars. You know, in 2016 he had a certain setup, and 2020 when I got my first Midwest Modified, my dad said, "All right, I know this works." I actually had the same chassis. It wasn't the exact same car, but it was the same chassis. He had a 2009 Fast Track, which is what Michael Schur was actually driving the past couple of years.
Okay.
That was his car. And I had actually traded my street stock to a guy out of Billings for this Midwest Mod. I traded my street stock turnkey for this Midwest Mod as a roller.
Nice.
So he said, "This is what these cars like. We're gonna put this on the car, and you're gonna drive it, and you're gonna love it." I'm like, okay. So I went out and I did okay with it. I actually did pretty well. My first year in a Midwest Mod, I didn't have a whole lot of money in the car at the time. I was scraping for pennies to kind of even just get out on the racetrack. But my dad said, "Yep, you're gonna love this." I said, "Well, okay." And like I said, I did okay. 2021, my dad, he built Jeremy Meyer's Midwest Modified, and so because of that, I'm like, okay, those two were kind of teamed up. They had kind of paired up as a team, and I made it my personal mission to pass the 24 machine as fast as possible every time. And I'm like, whatever I got to do to do that.
Yeah.
I'm going to prove it to myself, prove it to my dad, prove it to the people that really doubt me. And I did my own thing with the car. I took every single nut and bolt that my dad had helped put in at that point. It all got stripped. I put my own setup in the car. At that point, I put a fresh motor in the car. I mean, at that point, it was totally on me. Built the body, did all that. And we went from 2020, where it looked like I was driving the 1979 Monte Carlo around the racetrack. The car was real flat. It wasn't hiking up. It wasn't really doing much. It was still fast, but go to 2021, and opening night of 2021, my left front was about that far in the air, but 4 or 5 feet in the air.
Yeah.
And like, holy shit, man! Maybe I should have listened to him. Yeah. But once I could kind of dial it back and really tame the car down, that car was 3 times the car that I had in 2020, and that's the car that CR Eisenzimmer has now.
Okay.
And I mean, I talked to him here at practice. He's like, "Man, I really haven't changed much." And I remember there was a couple nights last year I was having a tough time chasing that thing down. And
well, I was going to say, there's a couple of times last year he was leading quite a bit of the feature. I was just watching one of the races from last year, and he was out front for a lot of it. So.
Yeah. But no, like I said, being able to kind of do my own thing, that freedom, the technology is advanced, pretty aggressively, and so like I said, my dad kind of being stuck in his ways. I'm more of a forward thinker.
Yeah.
I think these cars are changing, and they're changing for a reason. They're getting better, and so I'm always looking for that next step, that next the next technical change to a race car to make it that much faster.
Is it a good sense of pride to watch somebody else go fast in one of your cars too? It
is. Especially a guy like CR. CR, he's a really good dude. He didn't have any experience behind the wheel of a Midwest Modified or a legitimate dirt race car, and so to be able to watch him get behind the wheel of something that I put together, and do as well as he did with it, that was a huge sense of pride. I think that there was a lot of people that there's still a lot of people that think that my dad has a lot to do with my success, and to a point he does, but there was a lot of people last year even, I had to come out with a really nice car, but I had to make a lot of sacrifices to get to where I was able to do that, but had a lot of people say that it was my daddy's money or my daddy's time putting it together, but really I think a lot of people just don't understand. You know what I mean? And he'd be the first to tell you. You know, if he was standing here right now, he like 2020, or I guess last year 2023, the car that I had bought was actually wrecked. So I bought the bare bones chassis. There was a chassis and the deck tin was on it. And while I was deployed, you know, I got everything for my dad. Paid him for steel, paid him for tooling that he needed, and he fixed the car while I was gone. But by the time I got home, you know, I had already ordered a rear end and I had ordered parts, and he helped me. He marked the holes for the seat where the bolts needed to go while I sat in the car, and he tuned the carburetor. And other than that, it was all me.
Yeah.
There was a lot of help that I had from friends, especially like, you know, I'm sure you saw I wasn't here the first 3-4 nights of racing. I was waiting on a motor, was waiting on whatever else, and I was way behind because I was doing a lot of it on my own. Like 2 nights before the first night we had the car out, there was 4 or 5 of us out there thrashing.
Yeah.
So like 1 in the morning. I put the wrap on about 30 minutes before I loaded it to get here. I didn't even do, yeah. We scaled, I was throwing the wrap on as we were getting ready to scale the car. You know, and it was, you know, I was shitting my pants going into the racetrack because that's not how I like to run my operation, you know?
Yeah.
And then of course we go out night number 1 and had a lifter fail, wiped out the cam. So all that work made, you know, my 28 laps or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And motor come out, motor goes back over to Minnesota. You know, I got it back, and while it was gone, I had the time to really go through everything, fine tune everything, really nut and bolt everything, finish what I was started. And yeah, we started 15th and drove from the back and won it that next night out.
Yeah.
You know, and that was a huge accomplishment for me. And being able to have my dad there in the pits, Father's Day weekend, you know, I know he had a huge sense of pride too. So
That's cool. Is there you said you're, you know, building a house, and that's part why you're out of the car now. Is there a goal to get back into the car once that kind of complete?
Yeah, there is. You know, obviously this is something that I'm really passionate about. Really, like it's almost become a part of me. I would say it has become a part of me. But you know, I think that there's something to be said about being able to do it on your own, and right now I have other priorities in life. While it's something that I love and something that I'm going to miss, I know that I'm going to be in a better spot in my future because of it, which I think a lot of people don't understand. But racing's always going to be here. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a sport that I am fortunate enough to be able to come in and still, you know, enjoy it and still have passion for it in a different role. But right now I'm just focusing on my future and getting myself as far as I can, as quickly as I can. And it's really tough to do that with a race car.
Right.
You know, the thing about a race car is all it takes is all you got. You know what I mean? Money-wise, time-wise, you know, it's really just a pit. And while it's something that I love, it's something that I can't do and consciously be okay with myself. You know what I mean? Even last year, I'm like, man, all this money could be going into something that would really benefit me in the future. You know what I mean? Well, I got to show up for last year's a couple trophies and a couple videos and some memories, a lot of really good memories. But really, at the end of the day, I think that I need to focus my time and my resources elsewhere.
So kind of shifting gears to a little bit more of a daydreamy thing. What is is there a form of race car that you want to drive that you haven't gotten the opportunity to yet?
Yeah, I would absolutely kill for a season in a late model.
Oh, okay.
Do I think I'll get there eventually? Maybe. I don't think that I could do it on my own necessarily. Um, I try not to take a whole lot of money from sponsors because at the end of the day they're local businesses just like I have with Precision Raceworks, and I'm kind of starting to realize what it takes to run a small business, and asking for thousands and thousands of dollars from a local business sometimes just isn't really plausible or feasible. And I don't know, like I said, I'm out here racing for $225.
Right.
And while it takes a lot to get to that point, I don't like asking a lot from little people. And I do like to support local, and so being able to take my friends, families, business, and put them on the car. There was a lot of sponsors on the car last year that don't even give me anything. They're friends, really good family friends, their family, whatever it may be. You know what I mean? $250, $300. I had a couple sponsors that were kind enough to give me $1,000. At the end of the day last year, I think I had like $3,250 out of sponsors last year for the whole season.
Wow.
And it kind of develops that sense of pride. You know what I mean? You got guys out here that are sponsored by bigger companies that give them, here's $5,000. Oh, you get your tires at this place. Well, I'll put $2,500 worth of tires on my bill for you. You can just go pick them up. And while that would be awesome, it's really cool to be able to say no. I've been doing it on my own. Do it with the help of my friends and my family.
Right.
So
it's awesome. So what is Precision Raceworks?
Precision Raceworks, it ultimately, it started out as something for my dad and I to kind of help each other out with. My dad, he owns Aggressor race cars, so we've had a jig for a couple years so that we can actually build our own chassis. We haven't had any steel on the jig right now, or we haven't had any on the jig yet. We kind of got some other projects. We got some street rods and stuff like that going on. Cool. But for Aggressor race cars, I really was like, okay, what do we need in order to build a race car? You know what I mean? And so I started Precision Raceworks originally as a something that I could build trailing arm mounts for, pull bar mounts, different things that you need to build a race car. And I've done a pretty good job with networking. I'm pretty good with building relationships with a lot of different people. And I was fortunate enough to be offered to become a dealer for Lou Fager's racing equipment. So because of that, I am now direct with over 240 vendors for performance parts. A lot of big name companies. All of the big name companies when it comes down to building a race car. MSD, Holley, Willwood, Fast Shafts. You could theoretically build an entire car using Precision Raceworks.
That's awesome.
And so it hasn't really taken off quite like I had hoped yet. I think it's tougher to do out here where racing is a little bit less dominant, where
right.
You go back over to Minnesota, the Dakotas, it's a huge deal. But ultimately it's something that I enjoy, and it's something that in the future I think could really take me somewhere. And it's really helped me build my networking and build relationships with a lot of different people.
So kind of in that same category, what is it that Montana dirt track racing does well?
I think we're a tight-knit kind of community. I think you have to have a certain level of passion for the sport that in order to be able to willingly travel from here and drive a minimum of 2.5 hours to the closest racetrack. You know what I mean? And I think that we all share that passion, and I think that because of that, that there is a lot of good relationship building. I think that the relationships back east, because there's a lot more people. There's there's a lot more friends that are involved with it. I think that they have a lot of really good relationships, but because there's so many people, I think that you see a lot more negative impacts on those relationships.
Gotcha. What do you think is something that Montana dirt track racing could maybe do better?
I think that I think we try to get some big car counts. We try to get some specials coming, but I would really like to see WISSOTA especially, because IMCA, you got a lot of your clientele is out in Iowa. That's where your main clientele is. Mm-hmm. IMCA, you have racers everywhere. You have racers in every state. But I would really like to see the WISSOTA guys come out, have a big special for each class. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I know it's a little bit tougher trying to get those guys to come out here, but I think that if we could get a lot of the guys from back east to come out and really experience the dirt track racing in Montana, I think that you could really grow the clientele. You could really grow the sport. I think that legitimately, I think we have one of the best racing surfaces in the country in Electric City Speedway. On any night you're going to have 3-4 wide racing, and I think that if you brought a lot of the big name guys back here, they would be able to say, yeah, that was awesome. It was an awesome night. It was an awesome track. I'm going to tell all my friends that next year when they have that special, we're coming out. And that's not only going to build your racing community, it's going to build your fan base. It's just going to build the sport for Montana State in general.
Right. Obviously, the season's a little shorter up here, so I think that's something that kind of affects the big event type stuff, because we're kind of running when everybody else has already been running for 3 months already. So that's kind of a tough thing there.
WISSOTA is a little bit different.
Right.
WISSOTA, typically we start before like any of the tracks. Most of the tracks in Minnesota get started.
Yeah.
We had our practice last weekend. A lot of those guys are having practice this weekend or next.
Okay.
We do get done shorter, or we have a little bit shorter season that we get done before them. But that's the regular season. You know what I mean?
Right.
Those guys out there are running specials all the way in through October. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You can go race Topless Nationals and then come back and celebrate Halloween.
Right.
So I think that it would definitely take a lot of work in order to make something like that happen, because you got to talk to WISSOTA. You have to, this track is running that special this weekend, whatever it may be. But no joke, I think if you put together and you came up with a big enough purse in the middle of the season, you're gonna attract people regardless. And that's something that my dad has talked about for a long time. That's something I've been wanting to see happen around here. And it could honestly be a deal where you could work with the other 2 tracks in Montana and say, all right, we got a 4-night special. We want to run 2 nights here, 1 night there. You know what I mean? Come start
like a speed week type thing.
Yeah, essentially, and maybe doing it later in the week would be more beneficial for racers. That way they're not having to take an entire week off work. But if you started racing you came racing on a Thursday night, you know what I mean, and you did 2 nights at Electric City Speedway and had a special for Midwest Mods, or a special for Super Stocks. The Super Stock class, you don't see a whole lot of cars at anymore. And the Midwest Mods, there's a huge car count back east. The Super Stocks, there's a huge car count back east. And I think if you had a big enough purse, $10,000-$15,000 prize, and been able to, have some extra on the top where you could, pay out second, a couple $1,000 that's going to attract a lot of people.
Right. Cool. I mean, have you gotten to do a lot of traveling and see a lot of different racetracks? I mean, whether as a fan or as a driver.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've been out to the Dakotas. We've gone racing the Dakotas. I haven't really been able to go out and travel a whole lot into Minnesota to go racing. I think I see myself in the future at a level where I can say, hey, I'm taking 3 weeks off, and I'm going to load my cars up, and cars plural, hopefully,
Yeah.
and go race for a week. Go do the Dakota Classic Tour. Go do a lot of the traveling that I would like to. I raced the Wissota 100 in Fergus Falls a couple years now. I think 3 years now. But really, like I was talking about earlier, it's kind of tough to do on your own.
Right.
You know what I mean? Having to take a week off of work and spend money on fuel and hotel and the pit pass and parts when you tear your shit up, because it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Exactly. Yeah. And trying to do that on my own, especially at such a young age, is it's just tough. You know what I mean? I haven't done as much traveling as I would have liked to, but I've definitely gotten out of Great Falls.
Yeah.
So.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, thank you for your time. I'm looking forward to getting to be on the mic with you a little bit tonight. Hopefully we can, hopefully we don't get a whole lot of the R word this season, so we can work together a lot.
Yeah.
We're gonna. We'll have to maybe do a little dancing, but keep it going away. But any other thoughts as we kind of close up here?
No, I wanted to just say thank you for letting me come up here and share this time with you, and I'm excited to see everything that you can do with this whole interview deal.
Yeah, thanks for being my guinea pig.
Thank you very much.
Cool.